Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. Got a new day, which of course means a new NBA player prop video to share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. Speaking of channel growth, guys, if you can't tell, things are looking a little bit different here. Obviously, right now, we're not on the main Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel, and we won't be for a little bit. I can't really get into it too much, mostly because I don't really have a lot of answers for you guys. I wish I did. I wish we did in general, but unfortunately, we just don't. So, for the time being, all of our regular content, all of my NBA player prop videos, my NFL picks, my college football picks, our, primetime NFL picks videos, everything that we do on the main channel, for the time being, will be over here on more Guy Boston Sports. It sucks. We just hit 100,000 subscribers. Now we got to go ahead and basically start from scratch for the time being. But it is what it is. Ev is figuring it all out. I trust in him. We're going to be able to get back to the main channel very soon. But the show must go on. The good times are going to keep on rolling here. Whether it's on the main channel or this channel, we're still going to post content daily. So especially now, guys, please, if you're watching this video, hit that subscribe button down below. We could really use your help in some really annoying times. Like I said, though, guys, we're going to keep operating as if things have never changed. So we have 5 NBA player props to go and share with you guys in tonight's slate. But first, a quick little recap of how we did in our last video. And yeah, guys, the good times keep on rolling. Another solid performance from us. We give out 8 player props in Monday's video. We cashed in 5 out of 8. We're now 35 and 32 overall this year on our single bets. Again, we're still down in the units because we've taken some risks on some of these unit plays. But overall, we're having a really solid season. We're still 1-3 in our parlay results, plus 3.62 units. Overall, we're having a really solid NBA season through the first couple weeks. I'm feeling good. We got 5 player props to go ahead and share with you guys in tonight's slate. Let's not waste any more time, guys. Let's dive right into today's picks. We are jumping right into the outlier screen, guys, and kicking off the video with kind of a controversial pick. We are targeting the Knicks-Hawks game, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. We're going Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks under, that's right, under 37.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Now, the reason I say controversial is because the numbers so far this year for Trae Young in our favor is not very good. Trae Young has only cashed the under in 3 out of 8 games this year for Atlanta. He's averaging a whopping 39.25 points plus rebounds plus assists per game this year for Atlanta. And if you look down below, you'll understand why. There's just a ton of volume with Trae Young. He's playing about 36 minutes per game so far this year with Atlanta. This is not a very good Hawks team, and Trae Young is playing a lot of minutes. 18.9 potential assists per game, 8 rebound chances per game. He's taking about 18 shots of almost 9 threes per game. Just a ton of volume across the board and a very high usage rate for Trae Young. So there are the negatives, guys. We're getting the negatives done and out of the way right away. But now moving into the positives, the reasons as to why I like this player prop. And it all boils down, guys, to the head-to-head data. Looking at the straight-up matchups, the last 2 times he faced off with the New York Knicks, of course, these both being last season, he actually cashed the under, averaging 33 points plus rebounds plus assists per game against the Knicks. Again, very close, right? The line's 37.5. He finished with 33 in each of his last 2 meetings against the New York Knicks. Some really high assist totals in those games as well from Trae Young. 12 assists in their first meeting, 17 assists in their second meeting. But overall, they're still cashing. The key thing here is the Knicks force him into pretty rough shooting situations. You see just 15 points in their last meeting, 18 points in the previous one, and obviously not a lot of rebounds in there as well. You look at the shots there. He's taking about 14 shots per game, 16 shots in this one, 12 shots in this one. Those were actually pretty close games as well. 126, 120 for the Knicks here, 116, 114. So these are pretty tight games. But you see just 33% from the floor in their last meeting on November 15th, 25% from the floor on their previous meeting on October 27th. All in all, just really bad shooting numbers, a 29% shooting percentage on average in those 2 meetings against the Knicks. And it does make a ton of sense. This is a really solid Knicks defense. It was really good last year, and it's really good so far this year. Overall, the New York Knicks are 7th in points allowed so far this year, 2nd in rebounds allowed, and they are 15th in assists allowed. But if we narrow that down to just defense versus the point guard position, the numbers are fantastic. They are top 5 in all 3 key categories in this player prop. 5th in points allowed, giving up just 18.8 points per game against opposing point guards. First in rebounds and first in assists. So it's a really solid defensive matchup here against Trae Young, who again he has cashed the under in each of his 2 previous meetings against the New York Knicks. Even the last 20 games dating back to last year, Trae Young has actually cashed the under at a 60% hit rate. 12 of his last 20 games cashed the under, averaging just 35.35 points plus rebounds plus assists per game. So yeah, so far this year, it hasn't been great for us. Again, he's cashed the over in 5 out of 8 games so far this year for Atlanta. But look at some of those matchups. A lot of really bad defensive teams. He's played Brooklyn, Okay, not a very good defensive team. The Charlotte Hornets, definitely not a good defensive team. The Wizards, not very good. The Kings, not very good. And the Pelicans, not very good, mainly due to injuries. I mean, his last game just a couple days ago versus Boston, his numbers really bad. Just 2 points, no rebounds, and 6 assists. You'd think he got hurt or something. No, he played about 23 minutes in that game. He just played awful. Shot 1 for 10 from the floor. Played 23 minutes. It was a blowout win for Boston. But he played in that game in a pretty decent amount of minutes, and he did nothing. So yeah, at first glance, the data may not be fantastic, but I think the matchup is far too sweet to go ahead and not take it. It's minus 106 on FanDuel. We'll put 1 unit on this play. All right, guys, moving on to our second prop in today's slate. We're looking at the Cavs-Pelicans game. 8 p.m. tip-off. We're going Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers over 26.5 points plus assists. This is available for minus 113 on FanDuel. It's also available on pretty much every sportsbooks for varying odds. Now, unlike the Trae Young prop, the data overall looks really good on this one. Look at the season data so far for Darius Garland. 4 out of 8 games this year, he's cashed the over, a 50% hit rate, averaging 27 points plus assists per game so far this year for the Cavaliers. And Garland's obviously coming off a very impressive performance his last game against the Milwaukee Bucks just a couple of days ago. He had a whopping 39 points and 8 assists in that matchup versus Milwaukee. Garland's got that dog in him. I've always been a very big Garland fan. I almost wonder sometimes, like, if Donovan Mitchell and kind of the pieces the Cavs have, do they hold him back from his full potential? He's a really solid player, and games like the one versus Milwaukee show why I think he's such a good player. Garland's very special. I think there's another level for him to reach, a couple levels, I think, for him to go ahead and reach. I don't think he's maximized his potential just yet. And the head-to-head data versus New Orleans here is pretty solid. He faced them one time last year back on March 13th. He had 27 points, and 11 assists in that game against New Orleans, which was a 116-95 victory for the Cavaliers. So pretty good data there overall, and the defensive matchup is too sweet to not go ahead and take advantage of. Overall, the Pelicans here, 19th in points allowed, 27th in assists allowed as a team. But if we narrow that view versus point guards, it looks really good for us there. 23rd in points allowed, 27.2 points per game given up to the point guard position, 29th in assists allowed, giving up 11.4 assists per game against the point guard position. Bottom 10 in both those categories defensively. A lot of injuries to the Pelicans this year. They're missing a lot of key pieces, which is a big reason as to why those defensive numbers are probably where they are. It's a really solid matchup. Garland's coming off a really big game. I'm going to go ahead and do a little heat check here with Garland, see if he can't get close to that performance. Again, we don't need 47 points plus assists to cash here, but I think Garland coming off that game, little heat check here against another solid defensive matchup. We'll go ahead and throw 1 unit on this play. I like Garland a lot in this spot. All right, guys, next up, our third prop in today's slate. This one burned me a couple days ago, really pissed me off, but we're going to go ahead and ride with it again. We're going Rockets Spurs, 8 p.m. tip-off. We're going Sengun of the Houston Rockets over 14.5 rebounds plus assists. Minus 111 on FanDuel. We're throwing another unit on this play here. The data is really solid this year. It's 5 out of 7 games so far this year. Sengun has cashed the over. A 71% hit rate, averaging 16.14 rebounds plus assists per game so far this year for the Houston Rockets. And again, you obviously see that game there versus Golden State, which is the one we obviously had the over. Missed it literally by 1. He had 10 rebounds and 4 assists in that one. That game was obviously very frustrating. He only played 20 minutes in that game. For what reason? I don't know. He only had 3 fouls. There was no injury. Then he sat the entire fourth quarter and overtime. Again, sometimes sports, people don't like to say they're fixed, but moments like that make you think. Literally have no explanation for what Udoka was doing there in an overtime game. Your best player, they lost that game, and honestly, I'm glad they did. But we're going to go ahead and ride with it again because the data is still pretty solid across the board. He followed that up against the Knicks with 14 rebounds and 5 assists just the other night. And the matchup is a solid one. He's already faced off with San Antonio once this year. Now, he did fail to cash the over. He actually faced San Antonio twice this year, The first time, on October 26th, he failed to cash the over, just 5 rebounds and 2 assists in that one. To be fair, though, he only played 22 minutes in that one as well, so pretty low minutes there in that first meeting. But the second meeting on October 28th, he had 12 rebounds and 5 assists. So pretty good data overall so far this year. The head-to-head data, again, taking a little closer look there. 3 of his last 5 meetings dating back to last year against the San Antonio Spurs, he's cashed the over. A 60% hit rate, averaging 15.4 rebounds plus assists per game. That season opener game against San Antonio there, or not season opener game, but earlier this year game against San Antonio, just 5 rebounds and 2 assists. Again, he only played 22 minutes in that game. I just think, truthfully, as long as he plays like 25 minutes, which he should play unless Udoka pulls some more nonsense, he should cash the over in this one. The Spurs so far this year are 13th in rebounds allowed, giving up 11.6 rebounds per game to opposing centers, and 19th in assists allowed, giving up 3.7 assists per game to opposing centers. So it's a pretty solid matchup, and also the data at home is pretty encouraging as well. So far this year, 100% hit rate at home for Sengun. It should have been 100%. Again, that Warriors game, really frustrating. But 3 out of 4 games so far this year, he's went ahead and cashed the over, averaging 18.25 rebounds plus assists per game this year at home. And going back to his last 20 games, 14 of his last 20 home games in Houston, he has cashed the over, averaging a whopping 17 rebounds plus assists per game. And then, again, in the head-to-head data, the last time they played in Houston, back in March of last year, he had 16 rebounds and 3 assists in that one. Like I said, risky, of course. The Udoka thing, the weird thing with his minutes does concern me a little bit, but the data, the matchup, everything seems to point to an over here for Sengun. So we'll go ahead and ride with the over here, 14.5 rebounds plus assists. All right, guys, wrapping things up, I have 2 player props coming from this Chicago Bulls-Dallas Mavericks game, which has an 8:30 p.m. tip-off tonight. The first of 2 player props and our 4th prop overall, we're going Klay Thompson of the Dallas Mavericks over 17.5 points plus assists. Data looks pretty solid on this one here, guys. 4 of his last 7 games this season. Let me go ahead and rephrase that. 4 out of 7 games so far this year for the Dallas Mavericks. Klay Thompson has cashed the over, averaging 16.57 points plus assists per game. It's a 57% hit rate so far this year. And the volume has been there for Klay Thompson. You see he's averaging about 30 minutes per game this year for the Dallas Mavericks. I think one question we obviously had coming into this new era with Dallas was it what his role was going to be, how many shots he's going to take, and the volume has been there. He's playing about 30 minutes per game, taking about 12 shots per game, and almost 9 threes per game. So really good numbers there for Klay Thompson. Good usage rate there. And the head-to-head data is pretty good as well. Each of his last 2 meetings against the Chicago Bulls, now of course this is last year, and this is with the Golden State Warriors, but in those 2 meetings versus the Bulls last year, he cashed the over with flying colors, averaging 31.5 points plus assists per game in those 2 meetings. And the big reason as to why I like this prop is the defensive matchup. The Bulls right now are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. They can't guard anybody. They are 25th overall in points allowed, giving up 119 points per game, and 28th in assists allowed, giving up 29 assists per game to opposing teams. If we narrow that view down to just the shooting guard position, the data still looks really good in our favor. They are still bottom 10, 21st in the NBA in points allowed to shooting guards, giving up 30 points per game. They are 11th in assists allowed, giving up 5.1 assists per game. And just to switch things up here, looking at the 3-pointers allowed to the shooting guard position, really bad numbers. They're giving up 5.3 3-pointers made per game against shooting guards. So shooting guards, to make that a little easier, shooting guards are making on average about 5 threes a game on this Bulls defense. That is the 24th mark in the NBA for the Bulls defense. So overall, really solid matchup, pretty good data. Overall so far this year, again, 57% hit rate, 62% hit rate last year. I know it's with Golden State, but overall we see a lot of green here on this player prop. Minus 120 on BetMGM. Pretty good value. We're going to throw a unit on this one. In our second prop from this game, guys, and our 5th and final prop from today's video, we're sticking with this game. We're going Luka Doncic here over 49.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. We'll go ahead and throw 1 unit on this play as well. And the data on this one is not fantastic at first glance, but it's all about the matchup here. Now, so far this season, Luka's only cashed the over in 2 out of 7 games with an average of 44.57 points plus rebounds plus assists per game. He did cash it in his last game against the Indiana Pacers, and there are a couple close misses versus Orlando, versus San Antonio. But overall, last season, he cashed this pretty consistently. A 57% hit rate last year. He cashed the over in 52 out of 92 games last year for the Dallas Mavericks, averaging 51.35 points plus rebounds plus assists per game last season. But this prop for me is all about the matchup, the head-to-head matchup here. You see one of his last 2 meetings against the Chicago Bulls, the last time they played on March 11th of the last season. He had a pretty massive game, 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 14 assists. A total of 53 points plus rebounds plus assists. Pretty good numbers there. And like I said, guys, this Bulls defense is atrocious. Overall this year, they are 25th in points allowed, 28th in rebounds allowed, and 28th in assists allowed to opposing teams. Bottom 5 in all 3 key categories. It's a really big deal here. And for Luka, now looking at a matchup perspective, it's tough because, or matchup versus position, I should say. It's tough because Luka doesn't really have a position. He's a point guard, he's a shooting guard, he's a small forward. But across the board, you see really bad defensive numbers for Chicago in all of those categories. But on the flip side, Chicago has a really solid offense. They are 11th right now in offense, averaging 115 points per game. They're a pretty solid rebounding team. I think Chicago is good enough to at least score enough points to keep this game close to avoid maybe blowout potential here. But their defense is so bad that Luka should have a field day on this Bulls team. I think Luka should play a healthy amount of minutes here. I like the spot overall. So, guys, those are all 5 picks in tonight's NBA slate. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. Again, guys, please make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. We'll be back tomorrow with another NBA player prop video. But until then, guys, I hope you're all winners. Thank you very much for sticking with us through all this stuff, all this mess we're in right now. It sucks, it's unfortunate, but you know what? We're gonna power through. Nothing worth it in life comes easy, and we're gonna go ahead and get through this. Ev's great. He's gonna go ahead and handle the whole situation. But until then, guys, hope you're all winners. We'll see you tomorrow with another NBA player prop video.